Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. I'm reading The Wheel of Time for the first time and sharing the experience with you. This is One Good Turn, The Eye of the World, and today I'm covering Chapter 38. We get more rescuing, guys. A bit of a reunion. It's interesting. I've been so pro Nynaeve the last few Nynaeve POV chapters. She has some really good moments in this chapter, but there is one moment where I get really annoyed with her. So this idea that I'm less pro Nynaeve in anyone else's POVs but hers is humorous to me, I think. Interesting at the very least. In a way, we get Perrin getting some answers. I don't know that they're uniquely great answers, but at least a little bit. It's interesting. It's actually not terribly different from the answers that Rand got from Loyal in their meeting regarding the wheel. Although a part of me wonders, is it just that I know a little bit more about the way the wheel works now that is evoking this thought and feeling within me? I've also spent a fair amount of time contemplating the Children of the Light, but we'll get into that, I think, as we make it through the chapter. It starts with Perrin trying to sleep. Egwene is passed out from exhaustion. Apparently the White Cloaks don't bother to give them blankets or pillows or beds. Not that I would expect them to, but it's pretty brutal. There is so much brutality, I think, in their treatment of Perrin and Egwene in this chapter. Like, they don't care. They don't care if they're wrong. I vacillate between they are completely confident that these are dark friends versus they don't care. If they're wrong, it's no difference. We haven't even gotten 2 paragraphs into the chapter, and already I'm just contemplating this. Are the Children of the Light good? What good do they do? They seem so darn evil. Yes, I know we're in Perrin's POV for all of this, and they sure as hell do not like him. But, I mean, I guess if I were to try to imagine some good out of the Children of the Light, one would hope that they are first in line to go out and fight Trollocs. One would hope that BR's sociopathy, his complete lack of emotion, is unique to him. But it's rough because virtually literally every interaction we've had with the White Cloaks, including Rand and Mat back in Bear Lawn, I think it was, has been pretty darn negative. Anyway, the White Cloaks are moving fairly slowly. And they have Perrin and Egwene walking along, tied up in yokes, and it's annoyingly fast for them, who are exhausted and not treated well and probably underfed, but still, it's slow for the whole company. I said yoke. It uses the word halter, rather. Egwene and Perrin are both constantly on alert. They are both very frightened. They're on their way to Amador, which, frankly, I completely forgot about. I mentioned a few episodes back I had to take a break in between, I think, chapters 33 and 34, so it has been a bit since I've been with Perrin. But yes, they are on their way to Amador, and Perrin thinks that Egwene does not believe the threats that BR has been making, or she wouldn't even be able to sleep. Perrin has come to believe the threats, though he doesn't want to. He doesn't even really classify what BR is saying as threats. But BR did not really threaten. As if he were talking about getting a drink of water, he talked about hot irons and pincers, about knives slicing away skin and needless piercing. He did not appear to be trying to frighten them. There was never even a touch of gloating in his eyes. He just did not care if they were frightened or not, if they were tortured or not, if they were alive or not. And it's that matter of factness that frightens Perrin most and convinces him that BR is telling the truth. BR is a very terrifying figure. Jordan really does an excellent job of making this guy imposing and scary. The guards watch him with disdain, and Perrin thinks to himself, Light, how do I make them believe we aren't dark friends when they're already convinced we are? I mean, that very question, I mentioned it earlier, really has me wondering, is it that they are so certain that they're dark friends, or is it that they don't care if they are or not? If we accept the premise that the wolves are not dark friends, but accept that the White Cloaks believe that wolves are, I'm really working here to try to reconcile in my mind whether or not there is any redeeming quality to these White Cloaks, or to the White Cloaks writ large, rather. I guess I can get them being confident that Perrin is a dark friend then, even if they're wrong about it, because they know that there's a connection between Perrin and the wolves. BR approaches, and he's been using Perrin's axe. He appropriated it as his own. And I'm just thinking, gross. That's so gross and annoying. You are disrespecting the hard work that Perrin put into making that axe. It gives me the ick. BR tells Perrin to wake up and then kicks him. Perrin acknowledges that he's awake. Apparently, if he doesn't, he gets beaten even harder. BR starts dragging him, and Perrin shouts for Egwene to wake up, which, gosh, there's something so tragic in that. And him doing this is, quite frankly, I imagine likely to bring him an additional beating. But he's doing it to spare Egwene being kicked awake. He gets good points in my book for that. Egwene wakes up, scared, frightened. BR doesn't give any sort of indication of disappointment at not being able to kick Egwene, and the two are dragged along. Perrin reflects. Perrin was the only one he really went out of his way to hurt. Even if Perrin could not remember it, BR remembered that he had killed 2 of the children. So the fact that Perrin did that comes up again toward the end of the chapter. It's kind of subtly done, I think, but this idea that having taken 2 lives is something that weighs on Perrin, I think it's something that Rand and Matt have been able to evade for the moment. I mean, I guess you could say Rand knows he killed Goad, or suspects he killed Goad. Well, no, that's not true, because Rand doesn't even realize that the lightning was his doing. So, and I was going to counter that point even further, though, by saying, yeah, but Goad was very clearly a dark friend, so, more stuff to think about there, then. BR says, Why should dark friends sleep when decent men must stay awake to guard them? I appreciate the terrible logic of it, but at the same time, those guards do get to sleep. Surely you're not running them at 48 hours a day of waking. Surely they have shifts. But don't say that to him, Perrin. That will not end well for you. Egwene states that they're not dark friends. We are reminded, sometimes such a denial brought a lecture delivered in a grating near monotone on confession and repentance, leading into a description of the questioner's methods of obtaining them. Sometimes it brought the lecturer into kick. To his surprise this time, BR ignored it. Is it BR or Byar? How do you pronounce the name, listeners? But this does bring up the question, how are you supposed to prove it to these folks who have already made their determination? Right now, I feel very much as if I lean more toward they don't mind getting it wrong. The cost of doing business, if 10 innocents suffer to find the one guilty one. But I feel like that's evil. I feel like that is evil. And how can these people claim to be for the light? BR stares at Perrin and says, You are slowing us down, dark friend. You and your wolves. The Council of the Anointed has heard reports of such a thing, and they want to know more. So you must be taken to Amador and given to the questioners, but you are slowing us down. I had hoped we could move fast enough even without the remounts, but I was wrong. Perrin smartly waits, he doesn't say anything. The Lord Captain is caught in the cleft of a dilemma. Because of the wolves, he must take you to the council, but he must reach Camelin too. We have no spare horses to carry you, but if we continue to let you walk, we will not reach Camelin by the appointed time. The Lord Captain sees his duties with a single-minded vision, and he intends to see you before the council. So at this point, I'm thinking, have you considered splitting the party? Sending half the group onto Amador and half the group to Camelin? Is that a thing that can be done? Have you considered running ahead, leaving BR in charge, and then going solo to Camelin? Is a thought. A naive or possibly hopeful fantasy of mine involves Perrin almost trying to help problem solve as an effort of goodwill to prove that he's not a dark friend. He's like, I'll help you if I can. Would that be helpful? No, I did not expect that to happen. Calm down, everyone. But, were I Perrin in the D&D game, it's an avenue I certainly would consider exploring. But then again, I suppose I have a bad habit of always trying the diplomatic approach, even with very evil enemies. Perrin says, I don't understand. There is nothing to understand. Nothing but idle speculation. If you escaped, we would not have time to track you down. We don't have an hour to spare if we are to reach Camelin in time. If you frayed your ropes on a sharp rock, say, and vanished into the night, the Lord Captain's problems would be solved. And then he tosses a sharp rock on the ground. Now, I know immediately, nope, don't trust him. You're gonna stage an escape and then kill them in the process. No reason to trust this, and I hope against hope that Perrin is smart enough to realize that. And he ends up getting distracted with another escape attempt happening right on top of all of this. But I think he comes to the proper conclusion that this is a lie. Perrin even thinks to himself fairly quickly, think it through. Light, help me think it through and don't make any mistakes. Could it be true? Could the White Cloaks' need to get to Camelin quickly be important enough for this? Letting suspected dark friends escape? That's the thought right there. It's like, no, they would never let a dark friend escape. They would just kill him. And then he reflects on BR's character and just how much BR wants them dead and the likelihood that BR would ever be comfortable with letting them escape. Smart Perrin. He realizes how easy it would be to kill them mid-fake escape. Perrin wants to talk. He says, wait, I want to talk. And then he hears from the wolves, help comes. And I remember in the last chapter, I was like, ooh, I wonder if the wolves are communicating with him. Does he know? And this is that answer, and it feels good. So he doesn't know the full details. He didn't see Lan and Moraine in a vision or anything like that, but the wolves were able to tell him and give him enough time to prepare so that he would at least know what was happening as it happened, which is great. And Perrin thinks about Elias. He kind of presumes it's Elias. He's elated that Dapple is alive, and they send him a vision of Elias in a cave resting from his wounds. So Elias seems to be alive. And Perrin, I imagine it as having the funniest, gawkiest kind of look on his face. BR says, some thought has come to you, Perrin of the Two Rivers, and I would know what it is. What thought, BR, could you think he's possibly having at this moment? You've been beating him and running him ragged. It could just be setting into him that he could have an escape attempt here. Maybe he believes you, BR. No, BR is smart, though. Or smart enough to catch on here. Perrin's face just goes through a series of realizations, and it causes BR to reconsider this. And instead of letting them initiate the phony escape attempt, it is suggested that BR thinks they should just kill them and then fray the ropes themselves to make it look like an attempt. It would be a bit messier, but safer. Also, I didn't bring it up at all, but I wonder if this is Bornhald's idea or not. I wonder if BR is doing this without Bornhald's permission or suggestion. One of the guards disappears into the shadow. Lan is mid-rescue now. Then the other. And then there's a mini-boss fight between BR and Lan, with BR using Perrin's axe, and it swings, and Lan is just like confidently steps out of the way, but it's like close enough that he could probably have felt the wind. An exciting mini-boss fight. Egwene breaks down, crying. Is it really? We thought you were dead. We thought you were all dead. Not yet. The warder's deep whisper was tinged with amusement. That it was tinged with amusement is, I think, a nice bit of flavor that speaks to Lan's confidence and his competence as well. Perrin asks if Lan killed BR, to which Lan says, no. Lan's voice answered quietly from the darkness, I do not kill unless I mean to, but he won't bother anyone for a while. Stop asking questions and get a pair of their cloaks. We do not have much time. So, I'm at this point thinking, if you don't kill him here, he's going to become a recurring villain. I don't think he is ever going to stop hunting this guy. And I think he will be very, very dangerous in doing so. Do I think he'll become a dark friend in his attempt to get back at Perrin? Not so sure. But I do think he will be relentless. And then my thought goes to, should Perrin kill him here, unconscious? That would be a very dark thing to do, I think. Killing an unconscious man. It's one of those really tough decisions. Ultimately, Perrin doesn't. Probably the best for his soul. You know, it was self-defense back in the steading, but here, not so much. Perrin goes and grabs the cloaks and his axe. That was something else that I kept shouting at Perrin. Don't forget the axe! Don't lose the axe! So, good Perrin. I'm glad you still have that. Or got it back, rather. He gathers the cloaks, he gives one to Egwene, and it's re-emphasized that BR really has no human emotion. It seemed strange at first that he felt no reluctance to touch this unconscious man, but the reason came to him. All the White Cloaks hated him, but that was a human emotion. BR felt nothing beyond that he should die. There was no hate in it, no emotion at all. The two of them put on the cloaks at Lan's insistence. Perrin isn't certain at this moment if he's wearing BR's cloak or not. He didn't particularly want to. He also feels as if he can smell BR on it, which, you know, Perrin's a wolf now, so I kind of like to imagine he can distinguish that kind of thing through smell. They're waiting, and then the lightning hits. Repeated. Lan leads them out of the camp. There are White Cloaks running about, half-dressed, some more dressed than others, and folks see the escape attempt, but no one is trying to stop them, which indicates that they presume that these are other White Cloaks as well that are possibly half-dressed, figuring out what to do because of the lightning. And again, it brings up my question of, they knew the coin, or at least Bornhald did, knew the coin was an Aes Sedai tracking device. Did they not expect the possibility of Aes Sedai shenanigans? Because it seems like this escape attempt is executed more or less flawlessly. We'll see if any of the White Cloaks catch up to them, but I didn't get the sense that that would be the case. They get out of the camp, they make it a distance, and eventually the other two stop and Perrin kind of bumps into Egwene's back. We get this very interesting exchange. Moraine says, Nynaeve has not returned. I fear that young woman has done something foolish. Lan spun on his heel as if to return the way they had come, but a single whip-crack word from Moraine halted him. No. He stood looking at her sideways, only his face and hands truly visible, and they but dimly shadowed blurs. She went on in a gentler tone, gentler but no less firm. Some things are more important than others, you know that. The warder did not move, and her voice hardened again. Remember your oaths, all Lan Mandragoran. Lord of the Seven Towers? What of the oath of a diademed battle lord of the Malkieri? So, putting aside whatever the diademed battle lord of the Malkieri is, and Perrin is surprised that Lan is all of that. Admiration for Lan, whose first instinct was to turn back to rescue her. Shame on Moraine, there is no loyalty there. Surely it would not be so difficult. It's difficult. It's absolutely dangerous. Don't get me wrong. But what happened to you're a part of the weave now, and I would not risk your life unless I had to kind of a thing. You asked Nynaeve to risk her life. Yes, she was willing to do it, but you're not willing to make any sort of attempt or concern. You're just going to up and leave her. Shame on you, Moraine. Shame on you. And shame on you for putting Lan in that situation, too. Ugh. I like that Lan likes Nynaeve, though. And it is at this point that I'm wondering if Nynaeve is even going to be making it out. Because I could have sworn I remember a scene of White Cloaks in Caemlyn with someone in the party in a gibbet. So it wasn't impossible to imagine that they would catch Nynaeve, and maybe I was just misremembering who was in it. Anyway, fortunately, Nynaeve appears quickly thereafter with Bella and the other horse. Egwene is ecstatic to see Bella and Nynaeve. Moraine gets them all moving again. Nynaeve and Egwene hug. They let out a laugh. Perrin asks where Rand and Mat are, which is wonderful. I love that they are top of his mind in this situation. Speaks highly of loyalty and character for him. We get the passage, "Elsewhere," Moraine replied, and Nynaeve muttered something in a sharp tone that made Egwene gasp. Perrin blinked. He had caught the edge of a Wagoneer's oath, and a coarse one. What a way to say that she let out a curse. In a way, this is another point in the like factor for Nynaeve here. We're getting closer to the point that has me frustrated with her, but I like foul-mouthed Nynaeve. What can I say? Lan gets them moving again, tells them to change their cloaks. Perrin hops onto the White Cloak horse and rides saddleless. Bareback, I believe is the term. And as they make their distance from the wolves, Perrin senses in his mind, one day again. More a feeling than words, it sighed with the promise of a meeting foreordained, with anticipation of what was to come, with resignation to what was to come, all streaked in layers. He tries to ask why, and again he gets, one day again. Not much that you can do about that now, and eventually the connection is severed as well. I know that's a lot to take in, but let it be for now, I think, Perrin. Egwene and Nynaeve stay close together and speak excitedly with each other. I'm thinking, don't talk, be quiet, at least until you know you're safe. But okay, Perrin is still trying to sort through everything, and eventually they find a place to camp out for the night within a hollow in a gully. They bury the white cloaks, and Perrin realizes he was in fact wearing BR's cloak. Ha ha! Suck it, BR. You take his axe, he'll take your cloak. Egwene now insists on knowing where Rand and Mat are. Good. And Moraine says she believes that they are in Caemlyn or on their way to Caemlyn. And Nynaeve gives a loud, disparaging grunt, which I appreciate. They eat. Nynaeve heals some of Egwene's rope wounds, and then she goes to heal Perrin's. Heal with ointments. She says, "Take your coat and shirt off, Perrin. They tell me one of the White Cloaks took a dislike to you." He complied slowly, still half lost in Dapple's message, until Nynaeve gasped. Startled, he stared at her, then at his own bare chest. It was a mass of color, the newer purple blotches overlaying older ones faded into shades of brown and yellow. Only thick slabs of muscle earned by hours at Master Luhan's forge had saved him from broken ribs. With his mind filled by the wolves, he had managed to forget the pain, but he was reminded of it now, and it came back gladly. Involuntarily, he took a deep breath and clamped his lips on a groan. That struck me as a very visceral description of how rough they were with Perrin. So this sets the stage for my frustration with Nynaeve's comment in this chapter. We'll get to it, but know that I took this description viscerally. Nynaeve says, "How could he have disliked you so much?" So Nynaeve is taken aback by this appearance. Perrin thinks, "I killed 2 men." But he says aloud, "I don't know." So he's not willing to share that he killed 2 men, but that is his thought makes me feel as if that he did such a thing weighs on him, even though they were White Cloaks who were out to get him and Egwene. Nynaeve rummages through her bag and gets some ointments. It's an ice-hot pack. It both heats and cools. And it works magically fast. The heat and cold vanished, taking the pain with them. The purple splotches faded to brown, and the brown and yellow paled, some disappearing altogether. Nynaeve says, "You look surprised." She looked a little surprised herself, and strangely frightened. "Next time you can go to her." So that is what really, really upset me about Nynaeve in this chapter. 1, can you take any reaction of Perrin's at face value, considering what you have just seen he has clearly been through? Uncool. How can you take that look of surprise at it working? The relief. Maybe the surprise would as any sort of dissatisfaction with your own work, or any sort of preference for Moiraine's healing instead. Maybe I would feel differently if I were in Egwene's POV on the matter and I got why she came to feel so defensive in that moment. Maybe it's that realized it healed so fast because of the one power and her using it. And maybe that makes her uncomfortable, and because she has not fully accepted that part of herself yet, and thus she became short-fused on the matter. But not cool to take that out on Perrin. Where is your bedside manner? Perrin does say he wasn't surprised, just glad, and he asks again what happened to Rand and Mat, and Nynaeve has, I think, an enjoyable rant. She says they're all right. She says we'll find them. In Caemlyn, she says it's too important for us not to, whatever that means. She says a great many things. I appreciate this because especially through the rest of the chapter, I'm reminded, just because we have been craving getting the group back together and safe with Moiraine, does not mean Moiraine has been forthcoming or is herself safe. Again, just meta-wise, I think she is more good than their other options, but that doesn't mean that she's treating the boys with the respect and information that they deserve. As they're talking, Nynaeve gets a slightly alarmed look on her face, and she observes his eyes, and she basically notices that his irises are yellow, and she wonders if it's yellow eye fever, which brings Moiraine about right away. Perrin tries to dismiss it, but Moiraine looks him straight in the eyes and says, "There was no foretelling this. Something ordained to be woven, or a change in the pattern. If a change, by what hand? The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. It must be that." So, ordained to be woven or change in the pattern is, I think, now with context from Loyal's explanation of Ta'veren, this sentence has more meaning than it would have prior, other than to be some sort of vague conceptual thing. The by what hand is the big topic to be discussed. I think it's indicated that she fears it was the Dark One who guided events which allowed this wolfish thing to occur. But the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. She's at least telling herself it can't have been the Dark One. I also wonder if, maybe she doesn't know that one of the 3 of them is the Dragon Reborn. I would still lean more towards she does than doesn't, but the question of, does this exclude Perrin from being the Dragon Reborn, came to mind. Nynaeve asks about healing him. She doesn't know what it is yet. And the two start talking. We get the passage. Perrin glared at both the women. If you're going to talk about me, talk to me. I'm sitting right here. Neither looked at him. And I had a pretty visceral, angry moment at Moraine and Nynaeve over this, because I hate that kind of dismissiveness. And I feel so bad for Perrin, and they ignore him. They just continue on like he's not there. So I'm feeling secondhand annoyment for Perrin. Moraine says, I was going to say it will not harm him, but who can say what the end will be? At least I can say it will not harm him directly. Nynaeve responds, that's not good enough. If there's something wrong with... What is. What is woven already is past changing. We must sleep while we can and leave at first light. If the Dark One's hand grows too strong, we must reach Camelin quickly. And that suggests what Lan will explain later on, which is to say that the Dark One is slowly being able to take a more direct hand in events. But I'm rooting for Nynaeve here, who is constantly pressing her, saying, your answers aren't good enough. Tell us. And I find myself very frustrated with Moraine, who keeps slipping by with her vague answers and non-answers. It's so weird. The last many chapters, how I have constantly felt they need to get back to Moraine. And now that at least some of them are, how adversarial I now feel toward Moraine. The two break up, and Lan goes and sits across from Perrin. The hard planes of the warder's face were unreadable, but in his eyes Perrin thought he saw something. Sympathy? Curiosity? Both? You know? I know some, not all. Did it just come to you? Or did you meet a guide, an intermediary? A part of me here is wondering, as we get into this conversation, is Lan willing to have this conversation because he is the man and because Moraine thinks this information gathering will be better transitioned through the two of them? Or does she think because she's a woman, it's not her place to show him to do this information gathering? Did Lan take it upon himself to sincerely show some empathy or sympathy for Perrin by giving him this information? I'm more suspect, I think, than not. Whatever is communicated to Lan will be communicated to Moraine. Perrin also realizes a little before this that Moraine thinks that this is the Dark One's hand. And so as Perrin and Lan are talking, he thinks to himself, he knows, but does he think the same as Moraine? And he mentions Elias's name, and apparently Lan knew him. He was a warder. We get a bit more Red Aja mystery. He says, he was a warder before what happened, the Red Aja. And he drifts off. He glanced to where Moraine was lying before the fire. I've heard of the Red Aja, and most of what you've heard is wrong, no doubt. So I don't remember hearing anything about the Red Aja. Did I miss it if it was mentioned, or did I simply forget? It certainly makes the Red Aja seem uniquely dangerous. I imagine them not wholly dissimilar to the White Cloaks. Yeah, if details about what the Red Aja do or are like was mentioned, it's gone from my mind right now. Lan continues, you must understand, there are factions within Tarvalon. Some would fight the Dark One one way, some another. The goal is the same, but the differences can mean lives changed or ended, the lives of men or nations. He is well, Elias? I think so. That speaks to, again, that idea I heard in how this differs from Tolkien, in that I think this book takes the supposition that you can use power, but you want to use it well. It's how you use power. I want to bring up the Fallout show here for a moment. I hesitate to bring it up mainly because I'm really annoyed with it and the quality of the writing in it thus far. Season 2 is in the middle of airing. But this sentiment reminds me of a line which in isolation I thought was quite nice. One of the characters says something to the effect of, everyone wants to save the world. They just disagree on how. It's a good line. It's an insightful, if not somewhat nihilistic, belief statement. Perrin starts to speak about Dapple having communicated about Elias, but then he cuts himself off and just says he doesn't know, but he thinks so. And then he says, "This communicating with the wolves. Moraine seems to think it's something the Dark One did. It isn't, is it?" And he does not allow himself to believe Elias is a Dark Friend. And I don't think Elias is a Dark Friend, so good. Lan hesitates and then speaks, "Not in itself, no." Which I'm very glad he opened with, and I hope Perrin takes that bit to heart. "Some believe it is, but they are wrong. It was old and lost long before the Dark One was found. But what of the chance involved, Blacksmith? Sometimes the pattern has a randomness to it, to our eyes at least. But what chance that you should meet a man who could guide you in this thing, and you one who could follow the guiding? The pattern is forming a great web, what some call the lace of ages, and you lads are central to it. I don't think there's much chance left in your lives now. Have you been chosen out then? And if so, by the light or by the shadow?" So, frankly, that alone is way more informative to Perrin about why the Dark One wants them than anything I recall them being told. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if it's just that I know more about Ta'Veren now, and I don't know if Perrin knows about Ta'Veren. I don't think so, but I think in isolation, that statement of Lan's is informative, even if I didn't know about Ta'Veren. Perrin responds with stubbornness. "The Dark One can't touch us unless we name him. He can't." And Lan is amused by that stubbornness and hopes it will be enough to save him in the end, which is an ominous statement. I really hope all three are chosen for the light. I'm still expecting a devastating betrayal somewhere within the entirety of the series. Not just from a meta perspective, but from knowledge of the betrayal from Lews Therin's introduction way, way, way back in the beginning of the book. I think it's too simple an answer to say it'll be Mat. I have faith that Mat will overcome the corruption. Then we get the big exposition. "Remember what Moraine said I told you. In these times, many things are dissolving and breaking apart. Old barriers weaken, old walls crumble. The barriers between what is and what was, between what is and what will be. The walls of the Dark One's prison. This may be the end of an age. We may see a new age born before we die. Or perhaps it is the end of ages, the end of time itself, the end of the world." So, knowing what I know, it has been explained to me essentially that there are gates which hold the Dark One in place, and they are, I guess, falling or being destroyed or weakening in some fashion. And the more that do, the more of a hand he has on the world and the more influence. I think, while I may know a little bit more about specifics in terms of that there are in fact gates that are failing, what is written here, I think, communicates that concept. Such that if I heard about the gates right now, I was like, okay, yes, I get it. The fabric of reality is failing. Lan says the line, "But that's not for us to worry about, eh, Blacksmith? We'll fight the shadow as long as we have breath, and if it overruns us, we'll go under, biting and clawing. You two Rivers folk are too stubborn to surrender. Don't you worry whether the Dark One has stirred in your life. You are back among friends now. Remember, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills, and even the Dark One cannot change that, not with Moraine to watch over you. But we had better find your friends soon." So that line right there very much brings me back to Loyal's comment. "Till shade is gone, till water is gone, and the shadow with teeth bared, screaming defiance with the last breath, to spit in sight blinder's eye on the last day." So this idea is you fight with all your life to your last breath, the darkness, death, beyond, and so on. It's a nice sentiment, I think. And I guess from Loyal's perspective, it's a very human sentiment. Lan goes on to state that without the Aes Sedai touching the power to protect Rand and Mat, they are in danger. "Perhaps the walls have weakened enough for the Dark One himself to touch events. Not with a free hand or we'd be done already, but maybe tiny shiftings in the threads. A chance turning of one corner instead of another. A chance meeting, a chance word, or what seems like chance. And they could be so far under the shadow not even Moraine could bring them back." that does make me think of Ruin and his ability to change a few words here and there. And then it also makes me think about how the Dark One wants the two of them, Matt and Perrin, to turn them essentially into Death Knights, was the impression I got from one of Rand's dreams. Very worrying. Lan tells him to get to sleep and that they have a few hard days before they get to Caemlyn. So I think that indicates to us that Rand and Matt will have to find a way to survive for at least a few days in Caemlyn before they see the group again. What a chapter. Very exciting. They seem to have made it away. I hope they don't run into too much trouble on their way to Caemlyn. I don't think they will. I feel like they'll make it there successfully. I think that's all I got for now. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thanks, bye.